Okay, so the topic is on the lesson that I taught in week 2 that I submitted, and it is what students benefited from the lesson and what students did not. And what can you do differently next time to make sure that all students benefit from the lessons you teach? Okay, this is something I am learning every day. In fact, today was a very explicit example of how much I'm learning this, and that is the use of breakout rooms. Okay? For one thing, I have found that breakout rooms, putting students in pairs, doesn't really work because half the time one of them isn't going to do any talking. So I've definitely started shifting to putting them in groups. So as far as the lesson that I taught, it was where they were working on a mentor text. They were looking over an essay because they were writing an essay, and I asked them to look at strengths and weaknesses as I read the essay to them. So I mean, obviously, students who benefit from things being read to them benefited from that, while students who maybe don't as much. And I tend to be not as much an auditory learner, but I try to not necessarily, of course, project my learning styles onto other people. The ones who didn't benefit, of course, were the ones who, anytime you put students in breakout rooms, the ones who don't speak up. I mean, at this point, I'm pulling individual students into breakout rooms and doing the best I can to get them to talk, trying to make myself as little intimidating as possible. I tell them I'm hard on the eyes, but I'm easy to talk to. Okay, so yeah, what can I do differently next time to make sure that all students benefit from the lessons you teach? Well, that's exactly the thing. I keep adjusting it. In fact, my master teacher made a point of pointing out that the way I taught the lesson today, as opposed to the lesson that I taught yesterday, not the lesson from week 2, but the lesson. This applies to the lesson from week 2 because we're still working on the same essay, so I think it's just a continuation, really, of what I did in week 2. And again, just reviewing the comments from this past week's submissions, it's very much in the same thing because we're still working on the same thing. So it's a continuum in that sense. And I'm still learning, getting much better at it, actually, putting students into breakout rooms and managing that, not nagging them too much. That's my biggest problem, is nagging students too much. I hate dead air, and distance learning is almost nothing but dead air most of the time. So ultimately, there's nothing we can do to make sure that all students benefit. All we can do is keep trying, right? So yeah, just keep taking the students' cues, and if it doesn't work, don't admit it. That's another thing, a big thing that my master teacher is on me about all the time is narrating my failure. Don't. It's a very fine line between admitting you're human and admitting that you just messed everything up.